up, people? Dave and Duncan back from Epidemic. Took a little week off to do our part 2, obviously. Back in different clothes and,
Clearly,
different hat.
clearly, yeah. That is on the side.
That actually hurts.
Yeah, it doesn't look comfortable. Those hats are not designed to be worn on the side.
Absolutely not, Duncan.
No, never do that again.
We are back for part 2 of our top 20 of 2022.
Part 2.
If you haven't checked out part 1, link below, and you can hear 20 down to 11. We are now going to get into our top 10s of 2022.
Yeah.
On this video, Duncan's going to kick us off with his number 10.
All right, here we go. Number 10. The 10 that, the 10 in 2022 that we didn't actually know we needed, well, we got. This is Death Western by Spirit World on Century Media Records. Kind of old school hardcore band, which surprises me that it's on the list. But then you hit play on it and you realise it's Slayer as fuck. Yeah. And then instantly it rockets up that list. The thing about listening to Spirit World, and I wasn't familiar with them before, they had an album out before. This is our follow-up. And conceptually speaking, the brainchild behind Spirit World has a book tied into this, and an extended kind of concept idea of a world that he's building in this dystopian kind of. It sounds like Westworld if Westworld had zombies and like priests that actually want to hurt you rather than rape you. That's not every priest, but they know who they are. And the net is closing. The thing about it is, I knew I was going to love it pretty much from when the first song kicked off. That intro that builds up, but as soon as those toms kicked in and you just got good old fashioned kind of hardcore, shouty, angry vocals, kind of hardcorey, thrashy sort of riffing and incredible production, I was in. It's an album that doesn't give you anything you haven't heard before. It really, really, really doesn't. But it does it so fucking well. And so authentically as well, that if you were to tell me that someone had remastered an album from 96, a hardcore album that and I heard it and you were like, oh no, they've remastered it and updated and all the rest, I could believe that. It is of an era. It's weirdly time capsuled in on that one. But the album is just fucking full. I mean, full of just some of the most headbanging riffs you've ever heard in your entire life. Gang vocals, just snarl, blatantly influenced Slayer riffing, and an amazing production that kind of underpins it all. And it's an incredibly Moorish album. It's just one that this is like my go-to I Feel Angry Duncan Smash album. Because it does every single time I switch on, it just distills aggression in the most satisfying way. It's not an album in a million years, if you were to break down the component parts and say to me, oh, this album's going to be in your top 10 for 2022, I would ever say would have, but that just hit me right. And it's another album that appears to be getting a bit of traction, which kind of makes me happy, because this guy... This guy was supposed to be writing a book and accidentally wrote an album. Because we're all that talented. Yeah. So imagine, I said it in the review, imagine what happens when he sets out to write a fucking album. Death Western is a fucking great album with all the nods to kind of old school hardcore and thrash, just delivered in a really satisfying, very brutal, very upfront cunt album. It's excellent. I absolutely love it, and I'm glad it's in my top 10. I've played it an insane amount since it came in. So number 10 for me, Spirit World, Death Western on Century Media Records.
Nice. My number 10 was released back in July on Nuclear Blast Records. It was the band's second full-length album, and one that was kind of highly anticipated by a lot of people. It was Pathos by Conjurer. This is this is one of those albums that I listen to constantly for like a couple of weeks, and then I maybe like have a little break from it for like a month or so, and then when I come back to it, I kind of like fall in love with it all
It's
over
heavier.
again.
It's heavier when you come back to it. You think you
It does sound
remember
like
how
it.
heavy it is until you get played, and then you're like, oh fuck.
Yeah, exactly. And if you've heard the band's debut, Meyer, then you get a kind of rough idea of what to expect. But at the same time, you get so much more on pathos. Like, this is still within the kind of sludgy, filthy, soaked kind of post metal with a bit of hardcore vibe kind of thrown in there. But Conjurer have taken almost like the best parts of Meyer and then sprinkled a whole load of new ideas and then put it through some sort of fucking pat testing for albums and not small appliances just to make sure that it was fucking awesome. This album has everything. It's twisted, it's contorted, it's miserable. It'll pile drive you through the fucking floorboards. But it's also an album that's soaked in contrast and constantly drags you between these colossal, discordant grooves that are kind of counterbalanced against these huge, sprawling, uplifting layers of melody. Both musically and vocally, those little bits of melody on tracks like All You Will Remember just opens their sound up even more. But I think the most impressive thing for me is the kind of structure and the foundations of this album. They are extremely solid, and then that allows them to kind of build layers of texture and atmosphere on top of each track. And it just hits with like this huge impact. Every song feels you can feel the energy on each track. You can feel the intensity in every chord, every drum hit, the vocal lines. Nothing feels off the cuff here, but it never feels like they're winging it, but everything is there for a reason. And it also doesn't feel too regimented either. The album flows really well. It feels organic the way each track transitions into the next. And you'll just kind of get deeper and deeper into it on every listen. I've rinsed it so many times now. And even like, it's about like 50 odd minutes, it doesn't feel its length to me at all. It just kind of flies by when I listen to it. So that's my number 10, Conjurer and Pathos. Number 9, Duncan, take it away.
Oh yes. This came off the back of our reaction video where we were all pretty blown away. But on the lead up to the reaction video, I was like, I remember Mantar. I remember what they sound like. Just really, really extreme and angry. So I'm ready. I'm strapping myself in for just like, that's not what I was expecting. So it comes to realize that Mantar in the background were heavily influenced by kind of early 90s grunge. Turns out it was their thing. So much so that they actually released a covers album of early 90s grunge tracks. And maybe that was one of those things where they got out of their system, they were going to come back. And then we listened to Pain is Forever and This is the End, and out on Metal Blade Records, and come to realize actually this album is soaked in it, but it didn't compromise any way, shape, or form the extremity of what the band actually push. This to me is like Mantar like leveling up to like a huge size for a band that consists of 2 members. It's fucking huge sounding. Like, it is so massive sounding. And it has all those big sludgy doomy riffs, those extreme moments of like vocals that sound like the singer is like gargling shrapnel. And yeah, it has like a ton of melody in it as well. Not like singable melody, but like screamable melody. Yeah. It's all in there. It's incredibly well structured. It's got tons of piss and vinegar, and it just delivers. Like, every listen is one of those albums that, like, as soon as I listened to it, I was like, did we just become best friends? And I'm kind of still on board with it. I think it's an incredible album. The stories in the background are that it pretty much like almost sunk the band. They were just in like a horrible headspace when they made it. But sometimes the best art, the most worthwhile listens, are birthed from the most traumatic experiences. And it's all on display here. I think this is a testament to what hard work and not being shackled to one particular idea of what a sound should be, and allowing yourself to continually explore the music and elements that interested you in the first place to start doing what you did. It's an incredible album. I absolutely love it. And from the moment I first listened to it right the way through, it snuck on to that 10, even though it was a late July, early August release. But we'd already got in for review. We'd already reviewed it. The video just hadn't dropped yet. So we're like, it counts.
Yeah.
And it's still on repeat. I think they've done something kind of amazing. Like if a band like Cave In is showing this new side and like an elevated sound to them, and a band like Stake, who are 5 albums into their career, were showing that as well. I think the same can be said for Mantar, who are about 5 albums into their career as well. And I think only finally hitting a sound which kind of feels like they've been leading towards this forever. Absolutely, I love it. We checked out the track Odysseus back for a reaction, and I was genuinely concerned that, because I knew what they sounded like as a band, that when I found that it was a closing song, I'm like, right, that's them doing a little experimental thing at the end, and the whole album is full of it. It's fucking awesome. I love it. It's Mantar. Pain is Forever, and This Is the End, available on Metal Blade Records, and it's number 9 on my list.
Nice. Number 9 on my list. Bit of a surprise on my number 9, because
Quelle surprise.
I had never heard of the band before, but for good reason, because they hadn't released anything about.
Well,
years.
Oh yeah, that's right. Actually, I was about to say that's a good. Dave, you know what? You can't know everything.
Yeah.
Right. The internet tells you otherwise.
It's true.
But you can't know everything.
No, you can't.
They're not released anything in 10 years. If a tree falls in the woods, Dave, and you're not there to hear it, did it make a sound?
Well, this is the question, Duncan, that I'm not going to answer right now, but I will tell you a little bit about this new album from Earthrise, and the new album Until We Rest Beneath the Winter Way, which was self-released on October 14th. They are a Minneapolis band that could be described as a kind of post-metal band, but after running through this album, you realise that Earthrise are actually a little bit more than just a post-metal band. It has the dense post-metal heaviness, but it's also intertwined with a more atmospheric side. Something more in line with a kind of spacey, almost like a space rock or a shoegaze or a kind of post-rock. And I think in that kind of mix of styles and kind of levels of intensity, along with the band's creative way of piecing together each track, it's the main reason I was so into this. It's an album that, it may be over an hour long, but I never felt at any point this release was just reusing the same ideas or arrangements. They very cleverly...
Turns out from the guitarist they are. It's just hidden very carefully. He messaged me and said, listen to this moment on the album, then jump forward 4 tracks, and then listen to this moment on the album. I was like, they're the fucking same.
Yes,
Nothing is real. The government's behind it all. And I started wearing a tinfoil hat for a week and a half.
They very cleverly don't linger on an idea for too long, which is a little different for a lot of kind of post-metal, because it worked brilliantly, because you feel kind of totally hooked into this for its entirety. There's so much going on here, but a lot of it is the kind of detail, the devil is in the detail with this album. And it's one that you'll hear something new on every listen, which kind of makes it more rewarding. Although it does have like post-metal at its core, the riffs are not always predictably post-metal. They do often use like a more kind of odd time signature, or they'll add a little bit more intricacy into the riff, which just makes things even more kind of fascinating to listen to. A track like Generation Loss, for example, there's lots of stops and starts with interesting rhythms. It's lots of very different, textures, and the guitar work is fantastic, along beside the clean vocals, which is another reason for loving this album. There doesn't feel like there's any part of their game here that isn't up to par. Even when they throw in these melodic vocals, and they take the tracks tonally into different areas. I think it's a really special album, and it's one that just hooked me in from the get go. And I hope they don't take another 10 years to do another one, because that would just be devastating if that was the case.
It sounds like they won't. So. Because both yourself and myself, we've like obviously communed with the guitarist, one of the chief songwriters, and when he was like that, oh yeah, this album was written in 2012, 2013, and I was like, huh? Like, huh? He's like, oh yeah, we've continued writing in between, so fuck knows what that new stuff's going to sound like. But if you've got that amount of time, I don't think we're going to have a huge amount of time. The fact they self-released it as well, I don't think we're going to have that much time to wait before something else comes our way. I may be talking about this later on. So.
Yes. That's my number 9, Earthrise, Until We Rest Beneath the Winter Way. So, moving on, number 8. Duncan, what you got for me?
Well, I thought this was obscure, but in the previous video you told me everyone's now sucking on the supple teat of the Callous Dow Boys. Celebrity Therapist. It's on Monarch Records, MNR Kerr. MNR Kerr. Kerr. Are you Kerr? MNRK Records. I had never heard of them before. We did a reaction video, which is kind of like, some people hate doing reactions. Not I, unless it's against Nickelback videos. I'm just telling you the truth. Same Queen Poon. The thing that I found most interesting about the reaction we did to the Callous Dow Boys single, whatever it was, that how much I was just in from the off, just hooked straight in. It was bizarre, it was out there, it was sporadic. They had a violinist who was using an electric violin in a really interesting way to play sims that a synth could do, but fuck that, they're going to do it on a violin. And it had this almost beat poetry meets fucking freestyle jazz meets Every Time I Die, like orgy like thing going on, where it was just like it was holes being plugged everywhere and things going in places it shouldn't. But I was there for all of it, and like happily touching my penis. I think I genuinely think it's one of those albums where you can't stress what the experience of listening is like in any way, shape, or form that does justice to the listening experience. Like, you can throw all the words, like you do, like word soup on someone, just throwing everything at it, and I don't think it does justice to what they do. And I want to stress, it is like everything in the kitchen sink on the album, but it is crafted and written so well that none of the changes don't work. Which that's the thing that baffles me. There should be at least one turn this album does where I'm like that, the one step too far. And it never is. And then added to the fact of that, every genre, every style that they do, they're impeccable at. So it's not just like we're going to do like a 80s rock riff, and it's the most generic 80s rock riff you've ever heard. It's like everything is crafted supremely. Their use of instrumentation, the balance on the album, the actual flow of the album as well, is a masterclass in how to write challenging, complex music, but not compromise or understand that music like that can have hooks, and the album has hooks as well. Easily, it could have more if they wanted to, but they don't do it, which I can admire them even more for. It's an incredible album. It really is. I think it's like up there with some of the best that Dillinger Escape Plan ever released. And I get the feeling, once again, like a lot of the bands that we're praising are lavishing a lot of praise on are young bands that don't have like 20 albums out or like decades of experience. They're young bands that have appeared to have cracked the matrix already. And And with a band like this, I could not tell you remotely what I would think the next thing they do is going to sound like at all.
Yeah. No.
But I'll tell you that I am so excited for that. It's unbelievable. It's an incredible album. It's a great label that's behind them. Actually, fair play to MNRK who are like signing some like much more heavier bands to go along with their established crowbars. Like this is an album that's never going to shift millions. But on paper, and if things were equal on musicianship alone, this album should shift a lot of units, which surprises me. We mentioned it before when we did our video review for it. No one was talking about it, and I am confused by that because there's a good label behind it, and musically, how could you not want to talk about this album, even if you don't like it? How could it's an album that demands discussion?
Yeah.
I just happen to be on the side that's right, that this album is fucking awesome, and it's in at number 8. The Callous Dead Boys, Celebrity Therapist, MNRK. I Want Star Baby played at my funeral.
Done and done, Duncan. Don't you worry about that. Number 8 for me comes from a wee band from a Nordic country in Northern Europe. A little place called Norway.
I think I've heard of it.
Yes. Another album that didn't really appear in any of the big publications in 2022. Surprise.
But no. That's because that they were championing albums that were worth mentioning. Lamb of God, Slipknot,
Shite,
Machine Head, The Architects. I mean, it's the big four, isn't it?
The big four that no one should be listening to.
No, never.
Released on May 6th on Maskina Recordings. Probably the best band name of 2022.
I'm not going to laugh at it, though.
You're
laughing at it, though. Come on.
Big Muff, 68.
Why not 69? Come on.
It's too on the nose.
It's
too on the nose, Doc.
If it's on the nose, you're doing it wrong. Right. Where it's supposed to be. Right. It's a big muff though, so maybe it just kind of overlap. I don't know.
Yes, it is.
Overthinking it now. I'm overthinking it.
Swing Metal is their new album.
It makes me so happy that this album makes you so happy.
Yeah,
because it's such a fun album.
So it is a feel good album. 100% a feel good. I love this band. They're made up of members of other bands. So if you've heard of like Incense, Shining, Beaten to Death, Circus Maximus, all members from those bands, and then they've put together an album that I could pretty much listen to at any time of the day. Like whatever my mood is, this album is just perfect. Like it's, as I said, it's feel good, and it just touches me in places that I like to be touched.
And the big muff.
If you know, you know, Duncan. It's titled Swing Metal, but it's not a swing metal album per se, although it does touch on that flavour at times. This is a mix of like metal, blues, groove metal, progressive metal, Americana, gospel, rock, and the list goes on.
Keep going, yeah.
But like, even though there's so many styles, it doesn't sound like just a mishmash of styles thrown together. This all works unbelievably well and manages to sound very cohesive. For an album that contains so many styles, I think it flows brilliantly, and the transition between styles and tracks are all done very organically. And I think that organic feel is what kind of pulls me in. It's not overproduced. It's very natural sounding. You can tell there's not a lot of, a huge amount of studio tweaking being done. But when you listen to the other bands that they are in, some of those bands do share that kind of similarity as well. There are hints of the Norwegian band Incense at times in the more kind of progressive moments, but it also has this kind of like almost kind of Tropalium-esque New Orleans streak. And I think I mentioned before, Freak Kitchen as well. They got that kind of quirkiness to it. Musically, it's just very well done. But as I said, they all come from other kind of name bands, so you might expect that quality. Vocally is where I think the album shines. I've gushed over this guy massively before, so I'm going to keep this, to a
once
minimum.
Once or twice.
But yeah, I love his tone. I think he's such a versatile vocalist, and I think, again, the way they've kind of recorded and produced this album by leaving in all the little mistakes and glitches, it kind of adds to the charm. For me, it very much sounds like they just went and like picked the most energetic and charismatic take, especially vocally, rather than just trying to find the most perfect recording of it.
Yeah.
And I read another review of the album that criticised it for that, but I think they kind of missed the point on it, to be honest.
Adds character. It's
Absolutely.
an album that demands character vocally. If the vocals are too clean and too perfect, it completely takes away from the ethos of the band.
Totally. Yeah, I think sometimes the kind of emotion and the delivery of something is way more powerful than a vocal take that is pristine and note perfect.
We've spoken about this before. Like, see, when I hear a vocalist's voice crack because they're screaming that hard, to me is like haunts me more than someone delivering a pitch perfect fucking scream. Mm-hmm. Because I know that guy that's doing the pitch perfect scream, you don't really have to reach for that. Yeah. That's in the bank. Right, but when a guy like physically screaming and his voice is breaking to hit that is someone giving everything he has in that take. It probably has several times before, which is why his voice is breaking now.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what you get. There's just the feeling on this album that has a ton of feeling and personality. As I said, it's such a feel-good album. It's very playful. You've got a brass section in there, your Hammond organ in there, and they scatter that through the album. But even in the kind of slower, more kind of pulled back moments, I was totally in as well. It felt believable to me, and that's why it ended up in my top 10. And I was glad to see I wasn't the only reviewer on the site that had it in their lists either, so that was really cool to see.
You did threaten to fine people if they didn't put it on the list.
I took
the hit. I paid my fine, but some of the other reviewers, they don't want the gravy train of albums to be cut off, Dave. So
they're quite new, fair enough. But that is my number 8, Big Muff 68 and Swing Metal. Moving on to number 7.
Yeah, so you mentioned this in the previous video. You had a lot of good things to say about it. I held my wisht. Because we're Scottish and we can say that. And all the Scottish people know what that means. Number 7 for me is Ithaca and They Fear Us on, wait for it, Hassle Records. I mean, Hassle. It's the last Hassle Records on my list, but is one of 1, 2, 3... Four Hassle record titles made it to my final list this year. Hitting it at the park, man. Hitting it at that park. Ithaca. Previous album, good. New album, incredible. And you strip everything out, it is a metalcore album, right? At its basic level, it's a metalcore album, but it's like not shite. Right, like metalcore, has an era for me, and everything past that era has been shades of just do something different with it. I find metalcore is usually good as a kind of backdrop to more interesting music. A great example of that is we listened to, was it Invictus last year, who had that kind of metalcore streak going through there, but it literally sounded like someone was like, all you can listen to for the next 3 days is Shadows Fall, Kill Switch Engage. They're going to write an album, and that's what came out at. What Ithaca do is they very cleverly weave in lots of other stuff to make their music very, very, very interesting. And it's get the old Metal Epidemic almanac out. It does take you on a journey, Dave. I think this may be the first time I've done that. We've been through a few albums already. It does. It's a smart, clever journey as well, because always at its core, it has that thick guitar, bass drum, metalcore thing going on. But all the other elements on top of that are what really change the dynamic of the sound. Yeah. Which is smart. It's like the rest of the band don't need to compromise any aspect of that heaviness to ingratiate any other sound. No. We'll make the other sounds fit on top of that. And that is, in some respects, it's not only smart, but it's hard to do and make it work well, to make that balance work. And Ithaca nailed it. It's in part through very, very, very clever production. The production on this is fucking immaculate. You could eat your dinner off it. It's that clean. But also at the same time, I think it's the band starting to understand the game a bit better, like of what you can do when you've mastered the kind of solid backbone of what you're doing. It opens up the opportunity to experiment more on top of that, and it felt like every choice critically worked on the album. And as a result, there's no weakness on here at all. It puts forward a very, very confident, very accomplished, and very mature album. 2 albums in, which is it's frustrating. Like some bands take years to release an album as confident and as assured as this. They Fear Us is just it's just really, really, really well done. The lead work's great. The guitar riffs and hooks are awesome. And then the vocals, we've already spoken about it. A tone that, when it's snarly and screamy, doesn't sound like generic angry chick. There's so many bands that have that generic angry chick where you can't differentiate the sounds. She's got punch and intensity behind it, but tone as well. It's all tonal. And then you have this beautiful, clean vocal that she just holds in there. That's all primarily in the mid-range. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful to listen to. It's full sounding. And yeah, by the time you get to the final track on the album, you're already sold. And then the last track on the album is just the cherry on top of the sundae. And it's fucking awesome. It's like my biggest regret last year, with all the things, my biggest musical regret last year. Let's quantify it, because there's a lot of things I should have done last year that I didn't. But my biggest musical regret last year was not seeing them live, because I think they'll be even better live. On album, they're incredible, and I've come back to I don't know how many times, and it's another clear example of another UK based band like just rising up this year. And yeah, two albums in, fucking ridiculous. It's silly. It's silly when you think about it, but it's incredible. Number 7 for me was Ithaca, They Fear Us. It's available on Hassle Records, and if you've not listened to it, then you are a bitch. Also, they tweeted that on one of their gig dates, like a Janet Jackson happened. You know what I mean? The titty came out. The titty came out.
Oh, right.
Yeah, which... Why weren't you there with your camera, Dave? Because we're perverts, we're men, we can say that. But yeah, and apparently I think she just whipped it back in and never missed a beat. Professional as fuck. 2 albums in. Like, see, my dick fell out when we were playing live. I wouldn't be able to stop playing the song. It'd be flopping about the place.
Caught in your zip. And
that would not be able to flip it away until the end of the track.
No.
She's a fucking pro, though. Back in it, and she never missed a beat. Never missed a note. I don't know if she didn't miss a note. I'm going to assume she didn't miss a note. Ithaca, They Fear Us. Hassle Records, number 7.
Awesome. Moving on, my number 7 comes from the incredibly talented Cripple Black Phoenix and their new album Banefire, released on September 9th via Season of Mist. Yeah, obviously you mentioned this one in our first video, but just this album. Yeah, as you mentioned, it's quite a behemoth. You know, it's an hour and 40 minutes long. And I think, like, we'd spoken before, we'd reviewed the album, and we're both like, fuck, this album is
we joked about it. Yeah, we joked about it when we saw the runtime. In fact, actually, we did, if you remember rightly, Dave, we did woolly maths in your car.
That's right.
Trying to work out where the length of the album came from, and neither one of us could find out where the length came from. I was like, every song needs to be at least 15 minutes long for it to justify this. And I was like, this track's 3.5 minutes long. The math doesn't work. No, it is an hour and 40 long, so...
Yeah. I remember thinking when I was looking, I was like, I might need a wee lie down after this first spin of this album. You know, a wee midday nap or something like that, you know, which my work would probably frown on, but, you know, if it needs must and all that. But there was something about this album that grabbed my attention, because after the first listen, I couldn't stop thinking about it afterwards.
Yeah.
So although it was an epic listen, it didn't put me off. It was in those like further listens that this album just kind of came to life for me. Musically very diverse, flitting between the kind of melancholic, kind of dark rock, folk, post rock, a little bit of prog in there as well. But it's also a very immersive album, and if you know me, I love a wee immersive album. You'll notice that a lot from my picks in my top 20. And with this being over an hour and a half long, this is the perfect album for that. It's a clear a chunk out of your day to listen to this album. Just put the headphones on, be completely absorbed in it. The songwriting on this is unbelievable. We as we mentioned, we kind of came late to this band. I hadn't heard, previous albums up until this one, but I was just kind of blown away with the different tones and shades of darkness that they offer up on this album. It's such an intriguing listen. No two songs sound the same, believe it or not, on an album that's an hour and 40, but you can tell they're all clearly painted with the same palette of colours by the same artists. It's a very hypnotic album as well, the way it kind of reiterates certain themes and ideas, but it never feels repetitive at all. Even like tracks like Rose of Jericho, which is over 13 and a half minutes, you know what I mean? But there's so much. Yeah, there's so many layers to it. Like even if the guitars do repeat a certain phrase, there's something over the top of it that constantly changes and stops it from feeling repetitive, whether that's lead work or brass or synths or all the multiple vocal styles I've got. And that's the kind of beauty of this band. They give you so much to indulge in. They're just such a talented bunch of musicians, and we witnessed that firsthand when we saw them in Glasgow. It was just, it ended up being my favourite gig of the year just because it blew me away how ridiculously talented these guys and girls are. They put on a show that night, like it was just unbelievable. Last night of the tour, they pulled out all the stops, and it just, again, it kind of like Caven, it made me appreciate this album even more when I heard it live, just seeing what was involved in each song and how they switch between instruments and the multiple vocal styles depending on the track. Just such a special gig, one that I won't forget anytime soon. But this is it just feels like 100% authentic, full of depth, full of character. There's nothing here that feels thrown together. It's very well crafted, and I'm 100% certain that when this band come back with their next release, it's probably going to sound completely different to Banefire. They don't do the same thing twice, but just because the number of styles and genres they cover on this album, the next one will be a complete shift in another direction. And I love there's a bonus track on this, and I kind of love it for that reason, because it goes in a direction that you don't really hear on the rest of the album. It's called No Regrets, and it's just a way more extreme track than anything else that you'll hear on Banefire. It's very blackened, almost like kind of blackened hardcore, scathing vocals and bleak chords, and just a kind of exciting glimpse into what they are capable of as a band. So it's exciting to think about, what they're going to do next. This was just like, it's the definition of a 5-star album in my opinion, and produced by Kurt Ballou, as if the rest of what's on offer wasn't enough. You've also got that in there as well. But that is my number 7, Cripple Black Phoenix and Banefire. Number 6. So there's a little bit of Sinkage coming up here.
You knew it was coming. You knew it was coming. So we posted for those that are listening. The previous video, both myself and Dave didn't know what 20 through 11 were when shared that, but 10 through 1 had been posted on the website a couple of weeks ago, just before Christmas. Yeah. So we are fully aware of this. And what was interesting about this one is it happens every year. I think we keep thinking it's not going to happen every year, but it happens every year that inevitably we get, and it's always in the top 10. And sometimes it's number 1. It's not often number 1 because we do have tastes that sometimes wildly differ, but there's always a handful of albums which fall exactly in the same mark. So strap yourselves in while we talk about number 6 on our list here, which is Rollo Tomasi, Where Myth Becomes Memory on MNRK. Dude, so this is another like late 2021 reaction wasn't it? I'm trying to think, because the album came out in February.
Yes.
So we'd already
Yep.
heard at least one song. And then we did a second reaction. I want to say that second reaction was the beginning of 2022. So we did the original one. It was just me and you. Kyle then joined in for the second reaction. And if you are from the UK and you have ever been in a band that did any sort of touring or anything, you know Rollo Tomasi. You've come across Rollo. One of the more hard-working bands when it comes to UK tours out there. They're constantly at the grind. And they've always been a band that I've enjoyed to listen to. Like, when they put out something, check it out. But they obviously got picked up by a bigger label on MNRK this year, and it just feels like the time, the band, and everything's aligned. This album is stunning. Like, really is as close to a kind of masterpiece album for the band as there like maybe ever going to achieve. And I don't want to say they're never going to better this album, because you never say never, but if they ever better this album, then fuck knows that there's no glass ceiling at all to what they can do.
It's hard to imagine how they better this. It's so good.
The production, like, let's get that out of the way right at the start. Like, we sat down, we chatted to the man behind the desk, and I think I can't remember how many times we lavished praise on the Rollo Tomasi production, because it is difficult to describe how clean this album sounds without compromising one iota of how heavy it is.
Yeah,
like, you can hear every nuance of every instrument. Even the keys, that was the thing that came back to me. The keys are prominent in the mix, but prominent in that they hold just as much importance as the guitars or the bass. But I don't know how many producers can do that without either making it sound louder than it should be or not loud enough. And it's consistent throughout it, and it's a prominent instrument. It drives a ton of the interest in what they do. They use their keys really, 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 really well.
Yeah.
So there's that level in the production. Then you've got the rest of the band. Guitars are fucking chef's kiss. The drums, that fucking drum production is immaculate. It's perfect drums. Perfect drums. You nailed it. Well done. You have that, and then you have the vocals. And she's always had a great tone. She's always had that kind of almost kind of cross between death metal, black metal sort of screamy sound. It's in that register. She's always been able to nail it. And she's got a beautiful singing voice. Yeah. But on this album, she's married that beautiful singing voice up with really incredibly captivating melody. She just hit it. And with the synths in the background and the rest of the band doing what they do, this album becomes just a pure joy to listen to. It never rests on its laurels. It delivers at times polyrhythms. It can take you down much more a kind of almost metalcore route. It has moments of ferocity and fury, which are just infused and just like sticks to you and clings to you. And then there are moments that are so serene, so beautiful, and so ambient that you feel yourself getting all emotional listening to it. Yeah. And they make it sound fucking effortless. It doesn't feel like a band reaching for anything. It just feels like a band that have been on a journey. He's done it again. On a journey to deliver this album. Yeah. Where Myth Becomes Memory is like, it's a perfect album. I've listened, I've rinsed this one to death, and I've yet to find one element that I'm even like even if I was being hypercritical, like with my most critical headphones on, I've yet to find even something I could remotely stretch to grumble about. I think it's fucking absolutely awesome. And I think when we talk about the UK music scene as a whole, this to me is, if not like the one of the shining stars. I think this is the best album that the UK produced in the metal genre this year. I think honestly they nailed it. Yeah. And this is a testament to fucking hard work, because this is not a band being picked up and then the big push behind it. They've been at this for a while. This is album 6, isn't it?
6, yeah.
Yeah, so 6 out. This is their 6th go at it, and they've delivered arguably the album of their career, and on a label that knows how to push them, and we can only now expect huge things. I wish, and you're going to get a rant, I wish that half the energy that was spent pushing bands like The Architects were given to bands like Rollo Tomasi, who are much more deserving of praise and everything else. But no. God forbid we do that, because it's so clean and it's so nice and it's so like Rollo Tomasi can do that as well. It just doesn't define their albums, which is where bands like Architects have fallen over, where that is the defining characteristic of their album.
Yeah,
is how well he can sing, or how they can craft a kind of pop metal song. Rollo Tomasi only ever utilize those things where the song organically needs it. And it's a craft that takes years to achieve. They're one of the best bands in the UK right now, I think. And they got a ton. I saw some lists that appeared up, and Rollo Tomasi's names were appearing all over it. So they're getting it. The critics are behind them. The fans they can't not be with them now. And it's just incredible to see it. It's a fucking amazing album.
Yeah, the music will speak for itself, and I think the music will take them to where they need to go. Those publications, well, I'm sure they'll still continue to cover the Architects like every fucking time they have an album coming out, more than anything else. But people will know, people will hear it for themselves. They're like, what, this is actually not that great. We should be listening to stuff like Rollo, and people should be getting behind this band a lot more. But the album is so phenomenal that I can't see how they don't go on to do greater things. This is just such a confidence on this album from the band. The craftsmanship that they have, I've never heard from them until now. And I loved the last album. I thought it was great, but this is just, it's almost poetic how good it is.
It's a different gear. It's like there's a completely different gear of songwriting that they just like tapped into on this one.
And like when we did the reactions at the start, I was so on board with those individual tracks, but once I heard it as an album with those songs all linked together, it made even more sense and just worked perfectly well. The way they've pieced it together is fantastic. I think I love the fact that they've kind of stayed true to themselves, and that they've kept a lot of the kind of core elements from the Rollo Tomasi sound, but they've evolved enormously at the same time. There are moments on here that are unmistakably Rollo, but and stuff that you'll want to hear from one of their albums, but there are so many surprises on this album that just make it all the more captivating. In particular for me, the way they kind of play with the dynamics on the album, and the contrast between that kind of colossal heaviness and those clean melodies and the warm synths, it just makes for such a satisfying kind of juxtaposition in the band's music. I think they've really you can hear they've really worked on how to deliver those moments with that maximum impact. Every part of this album feels like it's been meticulously thought out, even down to little electronic sections that sit in the background, or like little layers of thin synths that just kind of elevate a chorus or whatever, and add a bit of kind of contrast. A lot of those synths and piano pieces, actually, they put me in mind a lot of Maybe She Will at times. Just, the way they're used as part of the story, because Maybe She Will are very like that. They're kind of telling some kind of story throughout their albums, and I got that from this album as well. Obviously, Rollo are a much heavier band, so this album also gives you that really harsh and savage side as well to kind of counterbalance all the melody. But I think Mutual Ruin was, for me, just like a perfect example of how they kind of tie all that seamlessly together, with newer ideas, but they still deliver on that kind of raw, powerful sound that we're used to from the band. This is a band that are delivering on all levels, and I can't imagine what they're going to sound like next. I actually can't even picture what the next Rollo album is going to sound like, but I can't wait to hear it, whatever they do. So
they can take a bit of time. They can tour this album a few times, I think.
Well, I still need to see it. I need to see it
we
live,
still need to see it. So, don't feel the need to rush back into the studio.
No.
Just come back to Scotland.
Yeah, yes, 100%. Go back to Scotland. Just tick that off your to-do list, and then, if you got to go into the studio after that, that's fine. So that's our number 6, Rollo Tomasi, Where Myth Becomes Memory. On to number 5.
We twinsied up on this one as well, didn't we?
Synchronized choice.
Right. So a couple of years ago, we started a little thing called Metal Epidemic. And then the year that we started that, labels started sending me their stuff. And we sat on it and we listened. And at the end of the year, we jointly agreed that the album of the year was from an unknown band way out in the west coast of America called Mountaineer. And the album was called Bloodletting. And it was fucking incredible. And then a mere 2 years on, the band...
2 years?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Mere 2 years on.
Who writes an album like this in 2 years?
Mere 2 years on, David. Granted, there was COVID, so I get the feeling that maybe they had a bit of time on their hands. I don't know. You know what the thing about that is? It's one of the things we never talked about was they did that live set what was posted to YouTube, and I remember sitting and going, this is when it all falls apart. And watched it, was like that. No, this is even fucking better. So yeah, like, so we were on board. Then we found that they were doing a new album. It was going to be called Giving Up the Ghost. It wasn't even necessarily 2 years because this one was released early in the year. It's out on Life Force Records, and I was kind of like Bloodletting is such the perfect album that how do you, like, very much like the Rollo conversation we've just had, how do you top that?
Yeah.
And then Giving Up the Ghost comes in, and then you realise that the band never attempted to top it. They just continued moving forward with their sound. And what we got here was something that was a bit shorter, but just like so spacey and so roomy. They describe them. What's the genre they call themselves? It's like
oh yeah,
it's a weird genre, right? But basically, it's like doomy, shoegazy, fuzzy shit. Although I'm sure it's not called doomy, shoegazy, fuzzy shit. Which, I mean, is like clearly doesn't work. But they have a particular term that actually weirdly sums up exactly... I'm just going to keep talking until you find it. Weirdly sums up exactly what the band sounds like.
Yeah.
In a comforting way, which Dave will give me the signal any second so I can stop talking and he can relay it back to us. But yeah, like, it marries that sound up. And when you listen to Mountaineer, it is summed by the genre that they kind of call themselves. I'm assuming they call themselves.
It was like some like... Was it some sort of dream pop or something, like sludge-soaked dream pop or something like that?
Something like that. But that's kind of what it is,
something
right?
Like
so much so, I think we booked about 12 imaginary tours where Mountaineer's been on them, and all the bands around them have never been of the same genre. I was like, who plays on that tour, though? Mountaineer plays on that tour. But where do they play? Anywhere they want. So Giving Up the Ghost is a much more vulnerable sounding album. This is one we mentioned in the previous video that actually weirdly starts to show a grunge-like quality, a kind of 90s alternative grunge-like quality in some of the guitar and lead vocal work. But if Mountaineer know one thing, they know how to just deliver an album that feels important. And that's what you get from the moment you hit play. It's just this really important, very captivating sound. It's so layered without necessarily being overrun with instruments. It just feels like there's like a depth to the album that when you feel like you've reached the bottom, there's another level. It's beautifully haunting at times. They're a band that appears to spend a lot of time making sure that everything fits right. And a lot of bands in these genres don't necessarily do that. They go for the common denominator. What's the heaviest riff? What's the angriest vocal? And they don't do that. What struck me about this one is that, to me, I thought after Bloodletting I knew what Mountaineer sounded like, but after Giving Up the Ghost I realised I don't. Still in the same genre. They haven't like jumped away, but it just showed like an extra level of musicality and songwriting that just felt different. It's like a more mature sounding album, but there's been no time to mature. It's so bizarre. It really, really is. It's got beautiful vocals, like absolutely stunning vocals. The guitar work is like lean, clean, impressive, and heavy as fuck when it wants to be. And the structure of the songs is just awesome. This one, they focused, I think, more on the experience than Bloodletting did.
Yeah.
And as a result of that, I think what you get is shorter tracks and a shorter overall experience, but one that conveys a message from start to finish. I had joked at the time, you knew I was going to mention this, I joked at the time that the idea of giving up the ghost and some of the imagery around what we'd seen in the kind of pre-release reminded me of Ghost Story, which is an A24 movie, which ain't fucking hoots, but I think is maybe like weirdly one of the best movies ever made, which is how my brain works, because it encapsulates the whole idea of human experience in a movie where nothing really happens. And weirdly, I think Giving Up the Ghost manages to encapsulate an entire spectrum of human emotion without necessarily giving you any of it. It's weird. I feel at times feeling things that I don't think the song is articulating, but maybe it's trying to make you feel. It's so bizarre. They are maybe music's best kept secret at the moment.
Yeah.
Because I still feel like we are the only ones talking about Mountaineer. Like I genuinely feel we're the only ones talking about them, and I can't understand why that is, because I honestly think in the genre of kind of sludge, which if you're bearing it down at brass tacks, they're more a sludge band than they are anything else. In the world of sludge, they're arguably one of the best bands on the planet right now. I think they're just doing something that other bands are trying to experiment with, but they have the source key for it. Like, they've cracked the code somehow, and I hear other bands trying to experiment with shoegazy sort of things, but that's clearly because it's a fad and like they're trying to get on it, and it just sounds inherently part of their sound.
Yeah.
And they make it sound like that's how that music's supposed to be written. And you're the idiot for not knowing that. You've been playing sludge without that stuff, like a fucking mug.
Yep.
When you could have been doing it all along. And that's what I love about them, is it just sounds like everything was meant to be that way all along. So 2 albums within 2 years, 2 stunning albums within 2 years, and fuck knows where they go next. But if there's one thing you take away from this recording, and I cannot stress it enough, I'm going to say this again later on. If there's 2 things you take away from this recording, first being this, Mountaineer Giving Up the Ghost is an album that you need to listen to. It's fucking incredible. So much so that Dave also joined me on number 5.
I know.
Bizarre.
Yeah.
We like, you know what it proves? Neither one of us likes Mountaineer more than the other. Not that it's a competition, but
True.
Neither one of us.
But unlike the film A Ghost Story, which made me feel absolutely fucking
You need
nothing,
to revisit.
and made me wonder why I'd wasted part of my life watching it.
You need to revisit and go back and just understand the full spectrum of human emotion. You cold, dead inside bastard.
Giving Up the Ghost, however, made me feel everything. And
Like,
glad
this band
that I'd
watched
used...
that movie and wrote this album, Dave.
This is... You're totally right. There's a huge amount of vulnerability in this album. And the one thing, even from Bloodletting as well, is the way that this band can play with your emotions through their music. The whole way through this, and it's only 32 minutes, so there's it's not as long an album as Bloodletting, but I was on the edge of my seat listening to this, just, what was going to come next. And that level of control that they have in their music is just unbelievably impressive. They know exactly when to pull back and give you something more introspective, and then when to let go and just deliver this climatic explosion of riffs as well. But I do think overall this album is more emotionally hefty than Bloodletting. It feels more subtle in places, more brooding. Just the way they've pieced each song together. It's definitely more kind of slow burn in places musically, but I think that allows you to focus a lot on the vocals on the album as well, and kind of get drawn in even more. I feel like vocally is where they've refined a lot of their sound on this album. There are songs where lyrically, it doesn't change all that much. It's not a huge story being told on every track, but it's enough to get across the meaning, and in some cases it actually makes it more profound because the lyrics stick with you a little bit more. I also like the way they've paced the album, how they constructed it. Bloodletting hit me from the get-go on track 1, whereas Giving Up the Ghost kind of slowly burns away, and then until you kind of hit that kind of warm goosebumps feeling towards the end of the album, it felt like a more kind of complete piece. It had an arc and an ending, and I kind of loved that about it. As you said, I think this band is unbelievably underrated, and it kind of blows my mind to think they aren't bigger than they are. But if they keep putting out albums at this kind of quality, it's only a matter of time before more people start to cotton on to this and be like, oh, wait a minute, who are these guys? Why haven't I listened to these guys before? So do yourself a favour, check these guys out. At number 5, it is Mountaineer and Giving Up the Ghost.
Yep. And we shared number 4, didn't we?
We did, yes. We also shared number 4.
Interesting when we talk about like booking like tours. We interviewed the band at number 4, and when they were asking us about like bands that are out there that would be exciting to tour with, I think the first thing we said to him was, you need to tour Mountaineer. Because Arm for Apocalypse with Ritual Violence on Candlelight Records is our number 4. Also, a sludge band. So same genre as Mountaineer.
Yep.
Couldn't be any more different on the level, though. So I'm going to let you run on this first.
Okay.
The reason I'm going to let you run on this first is because I would feel like a bit of a Kyle if I stole your thunder when talking about this. But moreover on that one, you've literally been like the champion for this band for, and this year now, a decade.
Yeah.
You've been championing this band to anyone that'll listen to you.
Yep.
And they've come back from a couple of years away and released arguably the album of their career. So Dave, the floor is yours first. Tell us how Ritual Violence made you feel.
Okay. I'll try and put my very excited thoughts into words for this one.
Penis.
I don't know if there was an album where I was more excited in 2022. Like this band, as you said, have been on my radar for such a long time, and when we heard this was going to be coming out this year, I was just like absolutely pumped for this new album, and it's turned out to be one of my highlights of the year. Like, not only because it's an unbelievably good album, but we also got to catch up with the band and hang out, and they're such a nice bunch of dudes, like
unbelievably nice.
The nicest, one of the nicest bands we've ever had the pleasure of speaking to.
You hear a song and then you like chat to the band and you're like, and that doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
how angry you are at the world.
Yeah,
and how nice you are to me.
Yep.
On the other end of the world, just chatting to you in a computer where you could be chilling out. You've just come out of band practice, you're sitting in your van and you're all like sweaty and shit like that, and all you want is to relax, but you're going to chat to me for an hour where I'm going to ask you dumb questions that you've been asked 100 times before and you're going to be nice to me and thank me for doing that.
Yeah.
Nicest dudes ever did, honestly.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, I mean, let's be honest, not every band we've spoken to over the years have been pleasant. Like, some of you are assholes.
Muir. Did I cough a Muir again? It's weird for that.
A Muir in your throat there.
A Muir.
But not Arm for Apocalypse, just unbelievably cool. And I got to meet the guys back 2013, I think.
Mm-hmm. That's what. Yeah, it's a decade. This is your decade anniversary of
when I met the band.
Sacred Love.
And they were on tour doing The Road Will End. I've got a chance to see them at King Tut's and like just been obsessed ever since. Obviously, there's also the nugget they dropped in that they were recording with Kurt Ballou, so it was like all my Christmases were coming at once. It was just
like there's that thing where I think we said it to them as well. If ever you had to marry up a producer and a band, it's like about the most perfect match ever.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's certain producers that you would like. You ever those bands that they were like, if they would just work with that one producer, everything would be right. And
Magic.
that's that. Yeah. It really is incredible.
Yeah. And this is like, even production aside, this is some of the most filthy, corrosive, brutal sludge you'll hear from an album in 2022. This, and it captures the energy of the band perfectly. Like it's relentless, it's gut-punchingly heavy, with all the Arm for Apocalypse characteristics that you'd want in your album, but also comes with like an extra sprinkling of awesome, because they've haven't just released an album that sounds like their previous albums. They've pushed the boundaries. They've really upped the ante when it comes to the songwriting, the structures and arrangements and the ideas on this album. Their songwriting has improved massively since 2013. And you could hear that they released a short EP in 2018, I think it was.
Yeah.
And you could hear that things had slightly changed, but then when they've had the opportunity to fully flesh out an album, that's for me where the magic has happened. As well as the sludge, you've got little nods to hardcore and noise rock throughout the album. Also, some really interesting, clean, like post-rock melodies on the final track of the album as well, which really excites me to hear, because it shows that they've still got more in the tank. Like this album is like chock full of really cool ideas, but I know that whatever they do next is also just going to blow me away, because there's definitely more there that they've started to incorporate in their sound. The album also contains one of the best riffs of 2022. It's fucking unbelievable. I listened to it as much as possible. The track's called Foredoomed, if you're checking out the album. And I mean, I'm wearing a Down hat, but Down only wished they could have wrote this riff, because it's fucking huge. It is just when it hits, and you'll know the riff I'm talking about, you just can't help but sit there and be like, with an open mouth. It is fucking awesome, man. I kind of, it's weird to think they've been on the go for so long, where I kind of feel like this is just the beginning of what's to come from this band. I can't wait to hear what they do next. But first, they need to get back over to Scotland, because I haven't seen them in 10 years. So now is the time to get back to the UK and decimate some stages, especially Scotland, though. It has to be on the list of dates. Phenomenal album, absolutely phenomenal album. Arm for Apocalypse, Ritual Violence. Duncan also had it, and it is number 4. We just, obviously, because we synced up and we know this shit is awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible. It's incredible. Like I said before, like to me, Conjurer released like arguably one of the heaviest albums I heard this year. Arm for Apocalypse released one of the most aggressive albums I heard this year. It's dripping out every song. Is that like a band where you genuinely feel like there are no limits? And I think we got that on here. It was like they were starting to dabble, especially kind of noisy rock sort of elements we're bringing in, that they're just dabbling with. They're just experiment to see if it works, and it fucking works, man. What else can they do? You know what I mean? I'm so happy for them, because I know that they're a band who could have multiple times quit, hung it up, and they've stuck in there, and they've released like almost a career-defining album now, and like with the new PR that are behind them, they know who they are, and the attention that's getting pushed behind them to drive them forward. I think this might be their time. We joked about that. They were almost, well, I joked about it, you guys humoured me, that I think there's almost a part of Arm for Apocalypse that were too ahead of their time when they first came out, and the rest of the music industry is now kind of caught up with that. And just as they were catching up with it, they're back doing it to a crowd that are now educated. Yeah. But they've done enough to make themselves stand out from it. So like really a kind of really interesting kind of forefather of a particular style of music. Because that like heavy sludge stuff is now everywhere. It's like loads of bands are doing it. But the way that they incorporate it with what they're doing, it once again just makes them just as interesting and vital to the genre. It's like Ritual Violence is one of my favourite albums this year, and I couldn't be any happier that we not only got a chance to speak to them, but the band are now starting to get the recognition that Dave wanted them to get a decade ago. So Yeah, and I don't often like to tell Dave that he was right, but turns out Dave was right. So there you go.
I've been waiting 10 years to hear that. Okay, so number 3, Duncan.
Yeah,
What you
you've
got?
mentioned it. You've mentioned it
Oh, okay.
already. So
Oh,
this
yeah.
is Earthrise Until We Rest Beneath the Winter Way. The band self-released this one, as Dave mentioned earlier on in our reviews. Essentially a decade to get this one out from the previous release. I think this is the album where we were like, right, like post-metal's now doing something really interesting in the last couple of months of this year.
Yeah.
We'd also had Psychonaut had released what they were doing. I want to say there was our
Hypnagon.
Hypnagon, where they'd done a post-metal album. The thing is, the year started off with a kind of statement of intent from Cult of Luna, who sadly did not make my 20, even though I fucking love that album, where they were like, here is like the best of post-metal you'll hear this year. And for the majority of the year, it was. And then at the end of the year, all these bands just started releasing these huge, dense, fucking massive, like, cockstrokes. And Earthrise released, in my opinion, the most interesting of all of them. Because what they brought to the equation that the other bands didn't bring was a lot more melody and this kind of weird sci-fi sort of hypnotic, psychedelic twist on it. It was a very vibrant album. We talk about industrial being kind of greys, but that's what post-metal is as well. But they released an album cover that looked like fucking artwork for like a fucking Super Nintendo game. And it was like all these kind of 80s digital colors, and it worked with the album is full of color. It's full of texture and tone. It tells a story. It's a concept album, and it's fucking brilliant. It's designed and crafted. Like the idea that, like, our going into that review was it's taken them 10 years to get the album out, and we were like that. Well, that explains why it's so well written in the placement of all the songs. Come to find out, it's been written for like a decade. It's been lying there for a decade. So they had that then. So all the structure and all that stuff was kind of there back then. It's an album that just gets more interesting the more you listen to it. I found myself going back and just like subtle changes in instrumentation or a note that's played slightly different has become like a focal point on a second or a third listen, where I'm like, well, actually, that's why I feel this way when that part of the song kicks in. And then on like a listen a month later, I'm like, well, no, it's not that. It's the counterpoint the vocals are using. That's why I feel this way. So it's always kept me interested. And it is a long but sprawling, interesting album. And that's why, like, interesting is the word I keep coming back to. And not in a kind of, that's interesting as a kind of way, because I don't have a better descriptive word. It really is. I don't think the band know, which is clear from the way they reacted to the kind of the internet's reviews. I don't think the band understand how good their album is, and how an album written that long ago can feel as like important now. I think that's the thing. Like, if you chronologically work this back, the album to me, which was the definitive post-metal album of the 2010s, is Cult of Luna's Vertical, which came out a year and a bit after they wrote this album, which is just bizarre to think of. They were already experimenting with a lot of those things that Cult of Luna would cement as their thing. And I was thinking, as a musician who has an album written that isn't released, and then hearing other bands start to slowly pick away at the thing that made your album special, might be really frustrating. But weirdly, you know, time has settled down in such a way that the release of this album just feels as important and vital and modern now as it would have back then. So, yeah, I think they're amazing. I genuinely do. I think some people are talking about them. I don't think enough people are talking about them. I think they should tour with Mountaineer, because Mountaineer should tour with everyone. I actually do genuinely think Mountaineer should tour with them. A fucking bitching gig. But yeah, I think it's an incredible album. And once again, if you are sleeping on Earthrise, it means you didn't listen to our review, because all we told you to do was check it out. It was a simple fucking ask. But yeah, until we rest, my teeth's falling out. Until we rest beneath the winter way, is my number 3 album, Earthrise, self-released. Please go and throw them a buck, because they need it. They're really, 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 really fucking good. What did you have at number 3, Dave?
Number 3, some more doomy post-metal. That's right, just for a little change.
Turns out, Dave, that when Spotify was summing up the sort of music you listen to, it particularly singled out that.
Yes.
As it knew that was a genre.
Yep.
And then it shamed you on the wall.
Yeah, it did. Yeah. Doomy post-metal. Yeah, this one kind of sideswiped us out of nowhere.
Yeah.
The Sacramento trio Chrome Ghost and their new album House of Falling Ash. I think my top 2 albums were pretty locked in from about August onwards. But if there was any album that could have challenged that top 2, this was definitely it. Because I've spun this an uncountable amount of times. This is their 3rd album. I've since went back and listened to the previous album, The Driving Bell, and it's another absolute gem of an album as well. So this album 3 is not a fluke. It isn't a one-off. These guys are just that good. In a similar way to like Mountaineer, they have a very high bar set. And if the quality doesn't hit that bar, then they don't release it. And what I love about this album is the fact that we had so many like post-metal and doom albums in 2022, but there were only a handful that really kind of like stood out from the pack. And House of Fallen Ash is definitely one of those highlights. It is. It's doomy. It's got moments of sludge and post-metal, even a bit of grunge. But it's got this kind of softer, more kind of tranquil side that balances it out. And I hadn't really thought about it before, but the name Chrome Ghost is kind of perfect for the band. Like, you've got these two opposites, like of something solid and metallic and heavy, but bonded with something that's something so ethereal and atmospheric and ghost-like. And they play them off one another like in such a clever way. But what I think they really nailed on this album is just the way they kind of build a track and give you like a sense of a payoff, and whether that's in the form of like just pure aggression, like an opening track, when those heavy vocals kick in, and or that big thunderous groove at the end of the Furnace, or the absolutely stunning harmonies on Where Black Dogs Dream. There's something on every track that will make you raise a smile and just love this album even more. And while on those vocals, the voice of Jake Kilgore is just phenomenal. Like, it's one of the main reasons this album is so high up my list, because his tone and his choice of melody is just absolutely on the money. His cleaner tone is where you pick up a lot of the kind of grungier tones. There's a kind of 90s grunge, some alternative mixed in. But his more metal tone is one of the most guttural things I've heard on a sludge and doom album in a long time. It's all girth. It's just like unbelievably heavy. Production as well is another key feature of this album. It hits very hard, but it's also very natural. And the album, like, it almost feels live at times. Like, it sounds like they've recorded a lot of this as a band and then maybe added in some overdubs and synths and stuff, but maybe wrong. But the rhythm and the natural flow of it feels very live. It doesn't feel like it's been like played to a click or snapped to a grid in post-production. It's got a really, really nice feel to it. Another band I need to see live because I think they'd be an absolute force. So I'm hoping they come to the UK, and Scotland is on their hit list at some point. But phenomenal album, Chrome Ghost, and House of Falling Ash is my number 3. Number 2, Duncan, what do you have there?
It's Chrome Ghost, House of Falling Ash,
hello there.
On Seeing Red Records. Like pretty much everything you just said. I'd like the first track on the first listen. I was like that. Oh, this is in the top 5, easy. Yeah. Like, I can't like it's the attention to the craft of how to build a song that It sounds like it should be easy, and it really, really isn't, because I mentioned it before, especially when you're in a kind of doomy world. Like, some bands don't understand when the riff's done. Like, this riff was done 25 seconds ago, yet we're still on it.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why. Chrome Ghost have that locked in, because they will revisit themes, they'll revisit riffs and motifs a lot. But for whatever reason, every time you come back to it, it feels like it should be there. And that's, I don't know how their songs are long. And I don't know how you do that balance without, like, at some point, like, putting a foot wrong. It's so weird. It's like there's like a science behind it, and they just understand what that science is. Vocally, it's on a different level. And I mean, as much praise as I threw on the Mountaineer album for like delivering like this kind of vulnerable side of melody, Chrome Ghost has it beat. The fact, in a lot of ways, those two albums, Giving Up the Ghost and House of Fallen Ash, are very, very similar, and in a lot of ways they're totally different. Chrome Ghost has a harsher edge to it. It doesn't use it a lot. Mountaineer is the heavier of the two bands, I feel, consistently, but I don't know if that's because Chrome Ghost only show that heavy side every now and again, where Mountaineer will more comfortably switch into that for longer sections. Vocally, it's beautiful. It's like one of my favourite like vocals of 2022. I find it absolutely mesmeric. I think you're right. I think there's an element, and we've mentioned it a few times, where it does lean into the grunge, that kind of 90s, but it works really, really, really well. It's almost a sound now that I feel could have been easily co-opted that way. I mean, like bands like 90s era Alice in Chains at times had a kind of sludgier thing going on. So it doesn't surprise me that it kind of transitions really well, but they use it. When he wants to go heavy, though, I always come back to that first track, and like for like it's like a 12-minute song or something, and then in the last 3 minutes, after he's played the motif a few times, they just drop into this growl that made me about fall off my chair, and it made me look at my device, just like, where, why are you doing this to me? And they come back to it every now and again, but they never overuse it. And it's almost the reverse of the Callous Dow Boys, where, like, if they wanted to, they could just do something entirely saccharine and melodic and shift units. If Chrome Ghost wanted to, they could be infinitely heavier than they are. It's just something that doesn't interest them until it interests them. It's immaculately produced, like Dave says. It sounds scarily live in parts and really kind of live in the room. And it works. There's layers and levels that they just achieve great, and it has one of my favourite album covers of the year.
I love it.
It's so fucking cool. And I genuinely feel this is the, like, off the back, we're saying that if there was one band you need to, and I changed it to the two bands which are weirdly linked on my list. The two bands that I feel will be criminally under listened to in 2022 are Mountaineer and Chrome Ghost. And there's an easy way to make sure they're not criminally under listened to, and that's listen to them. It's number 2 on my list for a fucking reason. It was number 3 on Dave's list for a reason. Chrome Ghost, House of Falling Ash from Seeing Red Records is my number 2. Give it a listen. You will not be disappointed.
You will not. Number 2 on my list has moved down one spot since our mid-year.
Oh, Dave.
From a label that absolutely killed it in 2022, Nuclear Blast Records. And for me, I haven't heard another album that sounds like this in 2022. It stands.
I went back to listen to it. The thing is, I've like, because you went up on this one from my original review. I think we were about the same grade, but you said in that review, you were like that. Listen, there's something about this that I know every time you called it. Every time I come back to it, it's just gonna keep going up for me, and it has not moved. It's still a 4-star album for me, but I would agree with you. I've never heard a band that craft the sound that they have, the way that they have, in such a way where, once again, it just sounds like, that's how you do that.
Yeah, it stands alone for me. It's separated from the rest. The album is called A Loner, and it's by a band called Hangman's Chair. Released on February 11th via Nuclear Blast. This is like... Well, there's a couple of albums like this on my list, but this is the definition of a kind of Goosebumps type album. If you've never heard them before, they are a kind of French gothic doom gaze band from Paris. More doom, yep. Sorry, not sorry. A Loner is their 6th album. They've been on the go for over 15 years, but they signed to Nuclear Blast a few years ago after putting out their 2018 album, Bon Le Triste. And as much as I enjoyed that album, this release just shows that the kind of band's songwriting has gone to the next level. This is, for me, this is like a tour de force in the genre. It's thick and it's low and it's got that kind of rumbling doom sound, but it's got this huge coating of echoey, kind of atmospheric, almost kind of shoegazy. The riffs are quite straightforward, as doom often is. It's not a genre that's known for technical riffs, lots of kind of frills and stuff, but I think that's the beauty of it. Like, if this was super technical and overfilled with technicality and fretboard wizardry, it wouldn't work. The minimalism and the heaviness just allows the riffs to knock you over, and allows those kind of dreamy elements just to bleed through. And when they push that more kind of haunting side of their sound, that's like when the magic happens. It's very melancholic. It's captivating. Almost feels kind of movie score-ish at times, the way they build it and layer it up with the clean guitar parts. Vocals, though, are just the kind of icing on the cake for me. Like, Cedric's voice is just very pure and soulful, very powerful. Even though he's competing with some really like heavy, thick, thunderous doom guitars, but the way they've cleverly produced it with such a kind of huge sound that it cuts through perfectly, and the harmonies are flawlessly placed to kind of elevate the whole sound, and it creates a really cool hook, which is again something you don't often get in doom, but these guys just do it extremely well. If you like your doom with kind of dose of gloom and melody, then this is definitely one you need to hear. The production is phenomenal. It's one of my favorite productions of the year. It sounds like it's been recorded in a big massive church. Like, it's very very atmospheric and laden in reverb, but it doesn't sound like it's been too overproduced. You can hear a lot of that natural reverb coming through. And it just kind of adds to the size and the character of the album. It's just stunning. I thought back in July that it was going to be like probably my number one spot, and then I did like a Mike Goldberg. I was like, it's all over, and then I was like, oh no, hold on, it's not all over. When August swung around, I had to eat my words.
That's a reference from like 7 years ago. I
know. But yeah, I love it. Absolutely love this album. And even though we're on to 2023 and we're listening to new albums, I know for a fact I'll come back to this and listen to it a ton. Hangman's Chair, A Loner is my number 2. So, number ones, Duncan.
Yeah.
Number ones.
So I joked about this earlier on at the end of the previous video that we were about to switch places. So number 11 for me in the previous video was Dawn Walker with House of Sand, and number 11 for you on the previous video was Author and Punisher with Cruller.
Yes.
So let's do the switcheroo. Number 1 for me is Author and Punisher with Cruller, out on Relapse Records. Once again, Relapse claiming the top spot. Boom. 2 years running. 2 years running. Back to back. Genghis Strong last year, Author and Punisher this year. I mean, when did Relapse start doing this shit?
I know.
Really, another label that has just kind of reinvented themselves for the better. Yeah, as someone who has partaken of Tristan's work in the past, I've always been a fan. Mostly because, not even necessarily because I am into industrial music, which I am. He is a particular, very, very, very abrasive background in industrial, builds his own instruments and his own sounds and all the rest. And what you get is like basically the sound of a mechanical Hell's Gates opening. At times, there really has this sparse and darkness about him that when I remember you saying to me, "Oh, the new Author and Punisher album's coming." I was like, "Oh, it'd be cool to check that out." You're like, "It's Relapse Records," and I was like, "Go on." And then, like, I remember hearing the advanced single, and there was vocals on it, and I was like, "What the fuck is going on?" And the album, I said it whenever it came in. When did this come in? A while ago now.
Yeah.
This album, first half of the year, way back, February, March, maybe.
Yeah, it came out in February, so it must have been...
In February, right. So I said to you in February when I heard this album that it would take an act of God to remove it from the top.
Yeah.
I genuinely think, I said it during the review, and I'll double down on this, like my favourite industrial album ever written is The Fragile, right, by Nine Inch Nails, a double album. I know a lot of people out there are going, it's the Downward Spiral, Duncan. It's like Downward Spiral's right there with it, right there with it. The best industrial album that has been released since, that's my caveat, since The Fragile in 1999 is Author and Punisher's Cruller. I think it just is so thick. It's unbelievable. I'm still, I shit you not, still picking out tiny little elements of what he's doing that are buried in the mix. It's monolithic. It's deliberate. It's slow. It's kind of slow machine piston-like speed, like lumbering its way through your ears with a huge percussive sound, and just wonderful 80s infused melody on the synths. And then vocally, I think I described it, I'm having to reach here for memories on how I describe these vocals. There's a quality that reminds me a little bit of kind of 80s era, kind of Gary Newman, with shades of something like a Depeche Mode in there, and it all works. It's full of atmosphere and tone. And you're right, like Author and Punisher, you can listen to those albums, but they are just a collection of songs. The difference between a collection of songs making up an album and an album is a theme, a structure, something that propels you through, takes you on, wait for it, a journey. And Cruller does, like the vocals, the addition of the vocals do that. And it is frustrating to me to think this guy has had about a decade's worth, maybe there or thereabouts, a decade's worth of albums out there, and we're only now just getting him doing the vocals that he clearly can fucking do. So he's like been holding on to that.
Yeah.
And Relapse is a great fit. Relapse is a brilliant record label for him to be on. And yes, we will see him live, come hell or high water. We will see him live. But I mentioned it back then, and I'm telling you now, I think this is arguably the best industrial album in the last 20 years. And I do not think we've heard the best Author and Punisher album yet. He's only just started doing vocals.
Yeah.
Only just started doing it. What does that... It's the same... I feel the same way this year about Author and Punisher that I did when we were doing our list last year about Ghost. And I was like that. He's only just started doing vocals and it now sounds fucking 100 times better.
Yeah.
I'm the same way. I don't know where it goes next. I don't know what he's got up his sleeve. But he is such an interesting musician that I cannot wait. I love this album. It's like every week it gets listened to at least once every week, which will, in context on the previous video, let you know how many times I've listened to Blood Command, because I bet it. I love it. I absolutely love it. It felt like an album that was made just for me.
Yeah.
And it's done well. It's done well this year. I've seen lists where it's appeared in tens, and I'm happy about that one because the guy's fucking earned it. The guy's earned it. This is the like kind of stepping out into a different level, different stratosphere, and putting everything. This is his major record label debut, putting it all on the line, and this so could have easily fallen apart. And instead it's solidified him as one of the most interesting industrial musicians of the last 20 years. So I love it. Cruller's fucking great. was always going to be my number one, and no surprises there. I'm just kind of hoping that next year, like, an album doesn't come in February, like Sanguisugabog, where I'm like literally going like this will be my number one at the end, and it's number one, because this is 2 years in a row I've called it, and it's happened both years. Granted, I control that, so it does kind of feel like I've said something like that now. I just have to be this way. But yeah, I absolutely adore it. And there's nothing. I know it's a great album with crossover appeal when it appears at number 11 on your list. When it was number 10 on your mid-year list, and I was like, how the fuck has Dave got an industrial album in there? That shows its appeal.
Yep.
And that shows it's crossing boundaries and the best. It's why 9 Inch Nails are such an important band, Dave, because you don't just need to be an industrial fan to enjoy 9 Inch Nails. Turns out millions of people do. And that's when you know you're onto something. Now, Dave, we're going to switch it around. Number 11 on my list was Dawn Walker with House of Sand. What's your number one, Dave?
My number one album, you may not be surprised to hear, is Dawn Walker and House of Sand. Like, I've spoken. I feel like I've spoken about this album a lot this year. Like, since August, I've just been like, Dawn Walker, House of Sand. Dawn Walker, House of Sand. Have you listened to Dawn Walker, House of Sand?
Going door to door with pamphlets. Have you heard the good news?
The Book of Dawn Walker and House of Sand. Let me introduce it to you. Let me into your home for a second. And then I have just listened to this album on repeat, basically, since August. And I thought I had my number one album picked before this, and then it came in and I was like, oh fuck, Dawn Walker, right, okay, really enjoyed their last album, interested to hear where they go with this. And this is a masterpiece for me. This is if you've never heard of Dawn Walker, this is kind of collection of musicians based in London, and led by a guy called Mark Norgate, who we had the pleasure of interviewing a couple of months back near the end of 2022. The album follows up the 2020 release Ages, which we reviewed and really enjoyed. This album, however, just hits on an even deeper level. It's quite a kind of melancholic listen. Sits somewhere between kind of rock, prog, folk, bit of metal. There's wee hints of black metal in there as well, but not too much. But again, a very kind of difficult band to stick a label on. Would fit well on a bill with a band like Cripple Black Phoenix. Are also kind of similar, and
Mountaineer.
Yes, they are. Yes.
Every band with Mountaineer.
Yes, Mountaineer. But they also kind of weave multiple genres. But just like talk about albums that feel unbroken and just complete. This is an album that just flows perfectly for me. It's such a cohesive listen. The tracks are all different, but are tonally linked by a kind of underlying darkness. And it feels, and I mentioned this before on a podcast possibly, but it feels like each song in the album almost feels like a chapter of a book. And the kind of depth and the level of detail that they explore on each track is just incredible. It resonated with me on a level that no other album did in 2022. It's musically maybe not just as heavy as the previous album, Ages. There's like little to no heavy vocals on this, but it's definitely got more of a melodic and melancholic streak. Very, very haunting album that's kind of shaped by these darker and more eerie melodies in the music and the vocals. And vocally, I think it's an absolutely stunning album. I think his voice makes this album. I think Mark's got such an imaginative way of delivering his vocal parts, the phrasing and melodies, the tone. It's just perfectly put together. Never feels repetitive. Even, by the way, they've just thrown a little black metal influence, just to throw you off guard. And the kind of this almost kind of like warped effect that the album has at times, which they created a lot of using this thing called the Nightmare Box. We talk about it in an interview if you want to check out. But it just adds to the whole kind of final product, which is just perfection, in my opinion. Even the Elvis cover, which is just cleverly original, just so rewarding for me. Like even when my mind went into like analysis mode and I was like trying to listen out for things that didn't quite work or felt flat. I couldn't find a single thing to dislike about this. It's about 43 minutes, and it's just, for me, it's perfection. Just full of emotion, full of complexity. It's got an identity as well. It ticks all the boxes, and then there's also this like additional charm that just kind of connects with me and hits the spot. You know, just takes it to another level. The D spot. We'll call it the D spot. This is the album that blew me away the most in 2022. And every time I hear it, I get the same like buzz from it. Like I'm listening to it for the first time again. You know, no matter how many times I've heard it, I still just feel that like, that feeling in my stomach when I'm listening to it. Like, this is just fucking awesome. Can't get enough of it. So that's my number one. It's Dawn Walker and House of Sand. And there we go. That is our end of year top 20. Shall we do a little rundown, a little recap of the full shebang?
Yeah, I'll count us down. Number 20 for me was Conan, Evidence of Immortality. Number 19 was 40 Watt Sun with Perfect Light. Number 18, Brutus with Unison Life. Number 17, Crippled Black Phoenix with Banefire. 16, Cave In with Heavy Pendulum. 15, Stake, Love, Death and Decay. Abrams was at number 14 with In the Dark. Number 13 is Blood Command with Praise Armageddonism. 12 was Conjurer with Pathos. 11 was Dawn Walker with House of Sand. And at number 10, Spirit World with Death Western. 9 was Mantar, Pain is Forever, and This is the End. Number 8 was The Callous Dowboys with Celebrity Therapist. Number 7, Ithaca with They Fear Us. Number 6, Rollo Tomasi, Where Myth Becomes Memory. Number 5 was Mountaineer with Giving Up the Ghost. 4, Arm for Apocalypse with Ritual Violence. 3, Earthrise, Until We Rest Beneath the Winter's Way. Number 2 was Chrome Ghost with House of Falling Ash, which means number 1 was Author and Punisher with Crueler.
Nice. For myself, number 20, Cave In, Heavy Pendulum. Number 19, The Edge of Haze, The Convoy of Ruin. Number 18, The Callous Dowboy, Celebrity Therapist. Number 17, Surreption and Yord. Number 16, Conan, Evidence of Immortality. Number 15, Psychonaut, Violate Consensus Reality. Number 14, Brutus, Unison Life. Number 13, Ithaca, They Fear Us. Number 12, 40 Watt Sun and Perfect Light. Number 11, Author and Punisher and Crueler. Number 10, Conjurer and Pathos. Number 9, Earthrise, Until We Rest Beneath the Winter Way. Number 8, Big Muff 68 and Swing Metal. Number 7, Cripple Black Phoenix and Banefire. Number 6, Rollo Tomasi, Where Myth Become Memory. Mountaineer, Giving Up the Ghost is number 5. Number 4, Arm for Apocalypse, Ritual Violence. Number 3, Chrome Ghost, House of Falling Ash. Number 2, Hangman's Chair, A Loner. And number 1 was Dawn Walker and House of Sand.
Boom.
There we go, ladies and gentlemen.
Boom.
That is our top 20 of 2022. Be sure to let us know what your favourite albums are from the year. Stick your comments in. And also, if you've heard any of the albums on our list, happy to hear your thoughts and opinions. Thank you for listening to both videos. If you've checked out the last one, links below if you haven't. We'll be back very soon in 2023 with what has 2023 got to offer, Duncan? Well,
if it's half as good as this year, we're spoiled already.
Yes, definitely. We should have a most anticipated list coming up as well, so keep your eyes peeled on our YouTube channel for that video.
Definitely not recording that right after this.
Not at all. Different clothing.
No evidence of that.
That is all from us. Thanks so much for checking out our videos. We'll be back with another video very soon, but until then, take care. Speak to you soon.
Bye, everyone.